Indian Weekender with me, Navdeep Kaur. Today we have a special guest in our show. We have with us Dr. Frances Hughes. She is a Group General Manager, Clinical and Care Services at Oceania Healthcare. She has been described as one of the most influential nurse leaders in the world. Today she will tell us about a new initiative that Oceana is taking for the Indian nurses. Welcome to the show, Frances. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And I'm very humbled to be on your show.
Thank you so much, Frances, for your time. Really a pleasure to have you here. Frances, to begin with, we know that Oceana is coming up with a first Indian nurses group. Tell us something about it. It seems very exciting for the Indian diaspora.
Okay, I think Oceania is a very large aged care provider in New Zealand with both villages and also care. And in the care side of the business, we are very reliant on nurses to provide that care. And we have a growing number over the last few years of Indian trained nurses who are coming into New Zealand, and we have been very fortunate to be able to have them in our care centres. They are highly valued, but I have worked overseas for many years, and I recognise that it's really important that when you have nurses from other countries, that they are provided with support, professional support. So as we had a growing number of Indian trained nurses coming in, we wanted to ensure that they had support from their colleagues who also came from India. So we formed this professional network for Indian nurses in Oceania so that they can learn and support off of each other, as they are the only ones that really and truly understand what it's like to be a migrant coming into a country, but also coming into Oceania. So we want to give as much support as we can to them.
Right. So basically this group is for the nurses who are working with Oceania to interact with their seniors and to get more professional help.
Yes. So we want to give them support. We want to know the things that we can do every day to make sure they enjoy their job. We want to provide them with access to professional development. So extra studies. We know that the Indian trained nurses, when they come into New Zealand, really want to access higher level education. So we want to make sure that as a group that we can understand their needs and support them.
Right. And if you talk about Indian nurses vis-a-vis nurses from other countries, where do you feel the Indian nurses have an access or have an edge over other nurses?
Well, I think they highly value education. They are very, very passionate about their career, and they are highly ambitious. And so that's important for us that we have the career pathway. So we have spent a lot of time at Oceania building career pathways for the nurses from India, as well as our own nurses, but particularly understanding what it is that they want to get out of their advancement. Do they want to go into management? Do they want to go into research? Do they want to go in advanced practice and maybe be a nurse practitioner, which is equal to GPs? We have all these opportunities at Oceania.
Right. And is this group also for nurses who want to come to New Zealand? Can they also be a part of this group, or only for...
No, well, they can. I mean, if they indicate that they want to come and work for us and they're sitting out of the country, we will connect them up, yes.
Oh, that's interesting. So at present, how many Indian nurses are part of the Oceana group?
Well, it's hard to say, but we think around of our registered nursing workforce, we would say that over 50% are from India.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Apart from this, what other services would this group cater to for Indian nurses, apart from providing professional help? What would be other advantages of an Indian nurse to join this group?
Well, I think we can support them in understanding the types of places they might want to work. We are a very big organisation. We have lots of different sites. So they might want to work in Auckland, or they might want to work in Wellington, or they might want to work in Christchurch. So we can support them without them having to leave and go to somewhere else. We can allow them and support them to shift into other places. We also do a lot of pastoral care. So we have our senior nurse leaders, we get around them and help them with accommodation, help them understand how some of the systems work. The medical organisation in New Zealand is very different to India. Mm-hmm. We are not medically dominated,
right.
The nurses might be used to in India. So they need to understand about working to the full extent of their degree training they did in India. They have a lot more freedom. We call it scope of practice, and they can get to do a lot more things with their license in New Zealand. So pastoral care, also ensuring that we understand it's how to support their families. In COVID, a lot of nurses were working. We got around families and supported them to understand, child care, all sorts of things. So there was multiple things that we have learnt that we need to do, and we're applying it to supporting this group.
Right. As we talked about COVID, and how is the situation now with regards to nurses being overworked? We always read news about how the nurses are overstretched. What has been your experience now? How are things better now?
Well, COVID was only part of it. The other issue is that we've been very short. In aged care in New Zealand, we are heavily reliant on internationally qualified nurses. Over 50% of our workforce comes from overseas, and a large proportion of that comes from India. Mm-hmm. So we have, with the borders being closed and visas and all those kind of things, we have, like all other providers, we have suffered shortages. So what we've tried to do is get around and support the nurses and value nurses, so that, yes, they have found it hard. It's been hard. It has been hard. But we have gone the extra mile to try and support them.
Right. So what would you say to attract new nurses from India to come to New Zealand? What would you tell them who are aspiring to come to New Zealand, but they don't know the pathway? Or what do you think they would have when they will come here in terms of what should they expect?
I think they need to realise that they will have a lot more freedom in their practice. That in aged care, we are a nurse-led service, which is very different. We also, they will be able to form wonderful relationships with our residents, and they will be part of a wonderful care team.
Right.
And we also have, in many of our facilities now, our own nurse practitioners. So there's a lot of opportunities to advance their skill and their career.
Right. I think Indian nurses are actually, a lot of nurses do come to New Zealand thinking that they have a career path, and this group would actually help them find a more career.
Yes, and absolutely.
And what else is
and ultimately, sorry, what was that?
Or you were saying something, sorry, ultimately?
Well, I think the group is just the start. What I see the group is giving us feedback on what extra things and other things we can do to support Indian nurses. It's not just about a one-way thing. It's not just about us thinking that we know how to support a migrant nurse, because we don't. I have worked in other countries. I have worked in Europe and I've worked in Australia. I know what it's like to feel foreign. I know what it's like to be away from home. But I came back home. What's important is that we listen and learn from what the Indian nursing group is telling us that we need to do to help them stay working for us. That's what's really critical.
As you just mentioned, what do you think are the challenges that Indian nurses face while they are in New Zealand?
Oh, I think they're the things that all migrant nurses face. I think they face being away from home, having families that they are very close to, parents, sometimes husbands, sometimes children back in India. I think they also face the issues of New Zealand culture not understanding and how to work in a multicultural way. Mm-hmm. I hate to say it, but I do think they are subjected to stigma and some prejudice at times, and that's important that we hit that on the head. I think they also face the fact that they may not have worked in aged care in India,
right?
Because it's a very different concept supporting your elderly in India than it is to New Zealand. But coming into aged care, you use all the technical skills that you learnt in your nursing training, and with people who are highly complex. So there's multiple at different levels. I think it affects people differently. If you are coming to New Zealand and you've got a brother or a sister or a cousin already here, and you're already, and you're embraced by the Indian community in New Zealand, I think that's different from someone who's coming in and may not know someone.
Right. And are you planning to do similar groups for other ethnic groups as well, for Filipino nurse or for other nurses?
Yes, we will, but we first started with the Indian nurses. It's just a matter of time. Yes.
Right. I hope the group does what it intends to do and does help Indian nurses in the big way, because they need all the support, as you just said, professionally, emotionally, and when you're away from home. I think it's just not professionally, but even emotional support that they need.
I agree, because we must realise that New Zealand was, as most of the New Zealanders, apart from our tangata whenua, have come as migrants to this country over history. So most of us have all been migrants. So we must embrace and support these valuable nurses to keep working, and particularly for us in aged care.
Right, because I think Indians are very hardworking as well. It's difficult to find people like Indian nurses here. They have always been valued. Right. Thank you so much for your time, Francis. It was a pleasure talking to you and to know more about the initiative. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Go well. God